Doing? My name is Micah Bridges. Welcome to the Lead Pass. And it's been a while since we've done one of these. I'm glad to be doing this again. So there's a lot of basketball being played lately. We're in the almost in the NBA Finals. The WNBA season has just started, and there are a lot of stories and a lot of narratives that are currently going on. And one of the biggest that's currently going on, um, for better or worse, is this whole conversation and the discourse around two WNBA players, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And I honestly believe that the entire discourse has, for the most part, both not been based in basketball and has also not been made in good faith. But to give context to what I'm talking about here, where this all started, April 2023, the women's college national championship was to be played between LSU, Louisiana State University, and Iowa. Now, the storyline going into this game was Iowa had leading scorer in the country, Caitlin, who's plays an exciting style of play, who was on her way to breaking the NCAA record for points in a career. And LSU, on the other hand, a school that a lot of people supported, whether or not you went to the school or not. They took over the hearts of a significant part of the country with the tough way that they played and with the charisma of a lot of the players, led by Pelagie Johnson and the most famous Angel Reese, a Baltimore native who was not only top five in the nation in scoring, but was also the nation's second leading rebounder, who had a very large social media following at the time. Now, on paper, this game was supposed to be a really good game. It was supposed to be a great game. But there was an undertone to this game. Basically, Iowa's team was majority white players, and LSU's team was majority black players. So social media did as social media does. They took that and they ran with it. And it became more of a social event than a basketball game, if we're being honest. Now, LSU ended up winning this game. They were just far and away the better team, because one player doesn't win championships. And one thing that happened during this game that, again, social media took and ran with it is Angel Reese made a gesture to Caitlin Clark. Now, you can call this showboating, you can call it whatever you want, but for people who watch the game of basketball and play the game of basketball, they know that that's just, whether you like it or not, that's something that happens during the game. You can't really fault a player for doing that. It's just something that happens. Now, this was the beginning of this so-called rivalry, right? That national championship game. Fast forward 364 days. April 1st, the next year, LSU plays Iowa again in the Elite Eight. Again, both teams led by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Now, this game, it was on ESPN, and it was quite literally the most viewed sporting event on the network. It had close to 12.5 million viewers. That was more than all but one of the NBA Finals games the previous year. So this was a massive thing. Now, Caitlin Clark played a very good game, and Iowa ended up winning. They moved on. They didn't win the national championship that year, but they won that game. So, since this rivalry had started, Caitlin and Angel were 1-1 against each other. Now, that year, in the WNBA draft, both Angel and Caitlin get drafted. It's probably the biggest draft the WNBA's had probably ever. And immediately, once those two women got to the league, a lot of eyes were brought to the league because Caitlin and Angel were the biggest, by far, the biggest stars in college basketball for both men and women for the previous years. So once they went pro, it brought a lot of eyes to the league. Now, when they played each other in their rookie seasons last year, obviously those were highly viewed games. But again, when they played each other, it was always more than just a basketball game. There was always a hostile undertone that was brought to it. Not by the two players, but by people on both sides that were supporting these players, right? So there was always that hostile undertone to these games. Now, last season, they played each other 3 times. Caitlin Clark's team, the Indiana Fever, won 2 of those games. Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, her team, won 1. Oddly enough, usually the player that performed better in each respective game, their team won the game. But during this time, you listen to people talk about the games and about these players, and you notice that it wasn't basketball. It was more agenda pushing and narrative pushing than any kind of good faith basketball discourse. And as a basketball fan, former college basketball player, and anybody who tried to get into the WNBA space, particularly once these players got into the league, having that kind of discourse online for someone who just wants to watch the game, it's off-putting. But last year, it was toxic, but it wasn't as bad as it would eventually become. Now, I want to speak to this real quick. A lot of people, because of the effect that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, particularly Caitlin, had on the WNBA once they got to it, they compared this type of rivalry in terms of like saving a matchup that brings eyes to the league and saves the league. This thing was compared to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 1980s. Coming into the NBA, when the NBA was on the verge of collapse and bringing a lot of eyes to it, bringing a lot of attention to it, and saving it and bringing a lot of money to it so that it could become a global game. That started with Magic and Bird. Now, why Magic and Bird, why that worked is Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were elite players with similar size. They were both about 6'9", and they had similar skill sets. And they were drafted to arguably the biggest 2 sports markets in America on opposite sides of the country in Los Angeles and Boston. And from the time that they entered the league, not only were they elite players, but they were competing to win championships almost immediately. From the time that Magic Johnson entered the league, for the majority of the 80s, at least from 79 until 86, most of the championships won during that decade were the Lakers or the Celtics. Magic's team or Larry's team. And for all intents and purposes, yes, they did save the league. They represented a microcosm of race relations of America during that time. But they never participated in it at any point in time. They just played basketball. And from the time that they started playing, attendance and viewership rose dramatically. And the NBA's commissioner at the time, God rest his soul, David Stern, made sure that he put the Lakers and the Celtics on TV as much as possible, regardless of who they were playing. And what made this rivalry special is that it was first and foremost, it was based in competition and mutual respect. Year after year, one was constantly working to be better than the other. And it was good for the game. Their rivalry, not only did it occur naturally, but it was healthy. What's going on and being pushed between Angel and Caitlin, this isn't healthy. Now, part of the reason I don't subscribe to the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark rivalry is that they're not anywhere similar as basketball players, if you look at it. One of them, Caitlin, is a point guard who is maybe 6 feet tall, who plays a fast-paced game that is based heavily on three-point shooting, self-creation off the dribble, and making plays for teammates in space. The other is basically a center who alternates between playing the 4 and the 5, who is about 6'3", maybe 6'4", whose game is heavily dependent on rebounding and hustle plays, who doesn't really score outside of 10 feet away from the basket. They're not similar to each other at all. Like, Caitlin Clark is an elite shooter and an elite passer that plays probably the most exciting brand of free-flowing basketball that we have seen, at least since Maya Moore was playing. She's on track to, by the end of her career, break the all-time assist record, break numerous records for triple-doubles, and she will be one of, if not the best player the WNBA has ever seen when her career is over. But right now, she has a huge turnover problem. She's an okay defender at best. And she has very big issues dealing with physicality. But that's okay. She's a young player, and she has time to develop. Angel Reese is an elite rebounder who will probably, at least from a numbers perspective, go down as one of, if not the best rebounders in WNBA history. And she's one of the best effort players in the W right now. However, aside from that, she has massive holes in her offensive game right now. And that is okay. She has time to develop. She has time to get better. She has time to work on her game. But I think some of the issue with current basketball discourse and sports discourse in general is that we don't allow players to improve. We expect players to be finished products by year 2 or year 3. And if they don't reach the expectations that we have for them, we label them as failures or as if they're not good enough. And I think that's number one, I think that's an awful way to think about the game in general, right? But even aside from that, the problem with these two, and to no fault of them, is that these two women are being dragged into a race war that they did not ask to be in. And people are attempting to use the names of these two women to push nasty agendas against other groups of people. Now, fast forward to the start of this season, right? A couple weeks ago, the Indiana Fever played the Chicago Sky. Again, Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, part however many at this point. And there are four more of these. There are four more of these this season. Good Lord! But 2 weeks ago, they played each other. Indiana Fever were up by a lot, and there was a play during the game where one of the Chicago Sky players had taken a shot. Caitlin Clark's teammate, Natasha Howard, was standing under the basket, prepared to grab a rebound. Angel Reese was behind her. She pushes her. No call, and she grabs the rebound. Caitlin is behind Angel, wondering why there was no foul. And what she does to stop a layup, she fouls her. Was it a hard foul? Maybe. It was just a take foul. Angel Reese falls. And she takes an issue with the foul. She gets up and tries to come at Caitlin. And Caitlin's teammate, Aaliyah Boston, wonderful player, by the way, stops her. Now, again, social media did as social media does. If it were any other two players that this had happened to, nobody would have thought anything of it. Nobody would have thought anything of it. Oh, it's a foul. She took an issue with it. Okay, get up. Let's play basketball, right? But the amount of think pieces and toxic rhetoric that was spewed online for that one play is something that I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before. And that's not the only thing that happened in this game. During this game, Angel Reese went to the free throw line. Now, as what usually happens when a professional basketball player plays in an opposing arena and goes to the free throw line, they get booed in some form or fashion. It happens in every professional basketball arena, everywhere, ever, right? But something was different about this. After this happened, after Angel Reese went to the free throw line, on Twitter, people were saying that, oh, they heard on the broadcast and that the microphones had picked up racial slurs and monkey noises being directed at Angel Reese while she was at the free throw line. There was no evidence presented when these claims were made, mind you. Nobody in the arena could confirm that this was happening. There was no evidence that it happened. People online were saying that that's what occurred. And in the midst of this happening, back to what I was saying about the discourse and how bad it is and how toxic it is. People were online saying vile things about not just Caitlin, but about the black players on her team, particularly Aaliyah Boston. There were things online being said that shaming the Indiana Fever black players for just simply playing for Indiana because Indiana's so racist. They're toxic people. They like why would you, and you playing for this organization, you're complicit to racism. It didn't just end there. There were black people on Twitter and on social media saying nasty things about Aaliyah Boston for standing up for her teammate. There were people that called Aaliyah Boston a coon and a house slave for stopping Angel Reese for coming after her teammate. This is a regular occurrence in a basketball game, mind you. There were people online shaming DeWanna Bonner, another player for Indiana Fever, for even playing for the team, talking about, oh, you just forgot about how those fans treated you last year? DeWanna Bonner was on a different team last year, and they played the Indiana Fever in the playoffs. Now, again, as a professional basketball player, going to an opposing arena in the playoffs, you're expecting the fans in that arena to be cheering for you, to be rooting for you, to be nice to you as an opposing player. Here's my thing. A lot of the discourse between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese is coming from people who I think have never played the game of basketball before. And I think that there's an element of these people who are new fans of the WNBA who treat this more like reality television than basketball. There are people right now that cannot tell you what an Iverson cut is, what a down screen is, that will try to give their opinions on what goes on in a basketball game and will treat it as if their word is law. Notice, I've talked about all these things happening within this basketball game, and as a result of this basketball game, everything except for the actual basketball game that Indiana won, by the way, pretty handily. That Caitlin Clark had a triple-double. The point is, there was a lot to talk about basketball-wise from that game. But yet, all of the discourse from that game was about two plays and two instances that were overblown. And that is the kind of thing that's been happening online since this Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese thing started. It's very rare that this certain element of people will make critiques and say things that are based purely in the game of basketball that I love, that a lot of people love. It's race baiting. It's agenda pushing. It's not good for the game. for anybody involved. It's not good for Caitlin. It's not good for Angel. It's not good for anyone. It's not. And as basketball players, it has to take a toll on both Caitlin and Angel that they're being used by other people to indirectly bash other people, bash other groups of people, and to be used as pawns in a race agenda instead of these two are good basketball players. They have a lot of work to do, but they're good basketball players. While Caitlin and Angel have brought a lot of attention to the league, particularly Caitlin, because if you look at the viewership from the last 15 years, the last season, the top 15 most viewed games of the WNBA season, Fever played in all of them. But on both sides of it, there are people who will use this very good basketball player, Caitlin or Angel, who will use this basketball player as a guise. They're not interested in having any real, genuine basketball discourse. And while Caitlin and Angel being in the league should be good for the league, it should be good for basketball, it's people online that are making this toxic and making a mess out of something that we should be appreciating as basketball fans. Now, back to this whole racial slur at the free throw line thing. People on Twitter were so loud, a section of Twitter was so loud about this happening that the WNBA launched an investigation to see if these racial slurs that were supposedly hurled at Angel Reese during this game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse were real. So the WNBA launched an investigation into these matters. Now, fans figured this out before the WNBA did, but the so-called racial slurs that were being said during this game was a laugh track being played on the PA system from a YouTuber by the name of Flight Reacts. A laugh track was played, and that was interpreted by some people online to be, oh, they're making monkey noises towards Angel. Now, have there been awful things said towards Angel since she's gotten to the league? Absolutely. But one thing we don't have to do is lie. So, about a week and a half after this investigation was begun by the WNBA, it was determined that these claims were unsubstantiated. So this whole rigmarole was due to toxic fan behavior and lying. We have 4 more of these this season, by the way. This whole thing is massively unfair to both Angel and Caitlin that they have been dragged into this thing that they did not ask to be in. They are basketball players. They want to play the game they love. But the section of people who are following this have made the environment around both of them so toxic that the new fan that wants to come and watch the WNBA and be invited into this space looks at what's going on and looks at the discourse and thinks, what is this? This isn't basketball. The NBA community, as toxic as it can be, and the NBA community can be very toxic. One thing that the NBA community is able to do is they're able to keep things about what happens between the four lines, just the basketball. How you perform, whether you're good or whether you're not. And that's the way basketball discourse should be. Basketball discourse should be determined by performance and by the game, by what happens in the game, by the results of the game. We shouldn't be in a situation where we have think pieces online, unsolicited think pieces, after every time these two players play against each other. It's not necessary. It's unwanted. It's not good for the game. It's not productive. It doesn't help anybody. Honestly, my thoughts and my prayers do go out to not just these two players, but their teams as well. Because nobody on either of these teams asked for this. They're just trying to do what they love. They didn't ask to be dragged into this. One can hope that as time goes on, the WNBA can start to have a contingent of people following their game that are more interested in basketball than anything else. It is the only way to grow the game. The extra stuff, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't grow the game. If anything, it turns people away from it. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese coming to the league and bringing the eyes they've brought to this league has brought forth an avenue for not just the WNBA to become more popular, but for the players to be compensated more, to get paid more. The avenue is there. But this section of toxic people is not allowing it to happen. And that is a large issue. Again, my heart goes out to both of these players. And one can hope that as time goes on, you hope that as time goes on, the discourse around the WNBA can become more like other sports where it is just determined by your performance and how good you are as a player and what you do as a basketball player. No personal attacks, no race agendas, just the game. Throughout American history, sports have always been a thing where regardless of what's going on in the country, regardless of what is happening in the country, that we can all come to this table of the game, whether that be basketball, football, baseball, no matter what's going on in the country, we can come to this table that is the game and we can enjoy the game. The sanctity of that should not be infringed upon by anyone. After all, this is a children's game. Yes, there are professionals playing it. At the end of the day, this is a children's game. No player should have personal attacks to them, their families, as a result of this, just for playing the game. It's not acceptable. It's not healthy. And I hope that as time goes on, that this can be rectified and we can all just come and enjoy watching the game of basketball. That's all I have. Again, I'm Micah Bridges. Thank you. Thank you for being in here and listening. I know this is kind of a long one. Thank you for joining me on the Lead Pass. I'll be back soon.